Not at that meeting. But are there any changes or comments on this minutes?
Correction under Department of Water Resources report, item number 3, January 13th should read January 1/4.
So noted. Are there any other changes?
And I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Under representative reports, did Paula resign, or did she just simply state her intent to resign?
She stated her intent, and then at the Board of Supervisors meeting,
I don't believe that's germane to the issue.
certainly not.
Okay.
Did I not state that correctly in the minutes, that she intended?
She will be.
Said she intended to resign.
Okay.
As far as I know. That's all I know.
I was not at that meeting.
So Mike, did you wish a rewording of that?
No, I just wanted clarification.
I make a motion that the minutes be approved with the correction.
I'll second. Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? I abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
Yeah, me too.
2 abstentions. Thank you. The minute for removal passes with changes. Members of the public? It appears we don't have any at this meeting. Does anyone know of anyone here? We have a cameraman.
Do we have a member of the public here?
That was
Sorry.
just pointed out.
Oh, okay.
No offense? Would you like to make any comments at this point?
No, not at this point.
Did you get, you had asked for, to be added to the distribution list. And
Right.
I've finally done that. I apologize for not doing that earlier.
Okay.
As I said, paper, it never made it to my distribution list. But did you want any of the earlier agendas or minutes from the rest of the year?
I don't think I need them right now. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, sure. And no comments at this time?
No.
Okay, we're going to move into third and fourth quarter report. The fourth quarter report has been added to this, was put on the agenda because the Board of Supervisors stated at CLAC was on their agenda. I don't know what that, it was a meeting in early December, so I can't remember which meeting it was.
I believe it was the one on the 5th.
On the 5th?
First meeting of December.
Okay. And they kept us on their agenda because, well, we were supposed to be doing our presentation, our third quarter report to them at that meeting. And I had, after the November meeting, when I understood that we hadn't finalized the third quarter report, I took us off the agenda, requested to be taken off the December agenda for the board, and they left us on because they wanted to just kind of confirm what was going on. From what Maria told me, they wanted to confirm what was going on in terms of the reporting. And so at that meeting I said we had not been able to finalize the third quarter report. We were going to hopefully do that and be able to present at the January meeting. And they, at that meeting, Jeff, who is the chair, asked for the fourth quarter report to be provided as well. And because the fourth quarter report last year, or at least for the last maybe a couple of years, but certainly last year, is more of an annual review of the topics that have been covered and as I mentioned, just the presentations that we've had and whatnot. It seems like it would hopefully be quicker to compile, and so therefore I've added it to the agenda to be at least discussed, if not finalized today. And so what I've what I've created is just something from our previous reports and looking at our, minutes and the things that we've discussed. And there's obviously some couple of blanks in this particular draft. And of course, I also linked it to our work plan, and how does it actually fit into our work plan and what we were looking at throughout the year. So that's it. So that's why the fourth quarter report is on there. The third, good morning. Eva, would you like an agenda or?
Yeah.
Someone's
Sorry,
here.
I'm late. I couldn't figure out how to make a left turn over there. And I had to-
Oh, yeah, the traffic.
Oh,
Are they ever going to be done with baskets?
I don't know. We hope so.
There's a few other handouts here. All right. So the third quarter report, I'm going to go ahead and move over to my laptop and the LCD projector, and if you all could take a look at this screen. This is just to facilitate it if we end up moving through it, not needing to retype anything or whatever, that's fine too, but I need to go ahead and turn this on. And third quarter drafts have been handed out before. So hopefully you've all brought those with you. And I'm going to turn off the lights, is that okay? Yes. Is that too dark?
Makes it a little more difficult.
Is it?
It's okay.
All right, I'm not sure which one of those switches part. Let me see if I can make this. Oops. Now, there have been other things submitted for the third quarter report that have been handed out, and Betsy also had a very thorough list of things that could and probably should be a part of the third quarter report.
I think you'll find that my actual report for this meeting contains a summary of the information that we should be thinking about talking to the board about in regard to these matters that we have had.
The Clean Water Program.
Clean Water Program, Watershed Protection District, sales tax, all of that stuff folds together.
Yes, no, I mean your handout.
Right.
Okay. And you're talking about your third quarter?
I'm talking about events that have occurred in the last month that affect how we should be addressing the board to give it advice.
December 20th report, Betsy.
Right.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we are going to tell them we did all this stuff this summer, but in fact, the key issues are the funding of the watershed protection programs and who's responsible and how they're going to conduct that business. And that will affect everything that we address ourselves to.
So let's,
You might just want to consider that.
well, we have a couple of options that we can kind of merge a third and fourth quarter report and not have two separate ones. But during the third quarter, it makes sense to address just the items that were, that were occurring and that we discussed and that were a part of Clack's concerns, the issues that we were having during the third quarter that we were, the third quarter of the year. So do you have a copy of your, this is the,
Just for the record, my understanding of the supervisor's direction at the December 3rd meeting was that they were looking for a report. And that's why they put it off until the end of January.
I agree with that. We have to combine the report.
Yeah, just one report combining all this information. Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
In providing these passive reports on what we have allegedly done, how are we using this process to develop cogent advice for the board in how it should proceed? Are we doing any kind of work on addressing that? What is our advice to the board? Well, this is what we've done. What is our
That's right.
advice to the board? That's my
Well,
question.
I don't quite understand your question. When we develop a quarterly report, and if you look back at the past several years of our quarterly reports, the items that are on our agenda, and more specifically the items that we discuss and develop as recommendations, that's what go into the quarterly reports. The recommendations are varied. I mean, you know, we had very specific ones on clog and muscles over the past several years. We've had more limited ones this particular year. So in terms of...
I'm just looking for those in this document.
I'm sorry?
I'm looking for those in this report. Where are our
The
recommendations?
annual report does not necessarily have that. As I said, the fourth quarter last year I used the same format
Okay,
as the previous annual report,
okay.
which was, here are the things that we have discussed. Here, you know, and we certainly can pull all the recommendations, actually, we can pull all the recommendations from this past year. However, when I look at the first and second quarter report of this year, there aren't a lot of recommendations. They are more, we're looking into this, the first quarter report, you know, we'll be discussing the new requirements of the NPDES, you know, and,
Sure.
and we'll be looking at we were preparing for Mark's presentation on cyanotoxins and or cyanobacteria and ways to control algal blooms through various methods. So the first quarter report really didn't have very many recommendations, so.
I would like to suggest that there are a number of things that we ought to recommend to the board as early as possible in the new year. For example, the establishment of a calendar by which we understand what the Department of Water Resources is going to bring forward in order to meet these regulatory requirements and to address the times of, let's say, the new season for fishing tournaments, when we should ramp up on those kinds of activities with the Department of Water Resources. All those kinds of planning ahead kind of things, I would like to suggest that we recommend to the board in terms of our integration with the county's need to implement their programs. I don't see that kind of planning anticipation. We say our goals are, how are we going to get there? No, I would really like to try and do
Now,
that.
we can certainly make our recommendations about how the Department of Water Resources should be rolling things out, sharing
How about
things with
we
us.
should be doing something, or what are we doing? in
Well,
that
we're not
planning?
rolling out the county's program, that's for sure.
But
We're-
we should
we're-
be helping them do that. don't
I
you think?
agree, I agree. I think, as you know, and as we spoke about last night, we have limited success in terms of being able to provide recommendations and updates for the county.
So that would
They're
be
only-
something
they're
I would
only allowing
report
a
to the
certain
board.
amount.
I would report that.
I absolutely agree,
Okay.
I absolutely agree.
How does that, is that in this?
So first, do we, it is partially in that, yes.
Okay.
Do you see page 2 under?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do we,
Specific.
it sounds like the group would like to just merge the reports, and that was not necessarily I didn't quite get that understanding from Jeff, but I think it makes sense to, and if the members concur, let's merge the two reports. I do think there's some detail in the third quarter report, particularly about cyanotoxins of public health that Dr. Tate provided, and our concerns and issues with that I think still needs to be in the fourth quarter report, because we have not reported on that to them, including some some recommendations about timing and things that the county should be doing with regard to public health in the lake and cyanotoxins. So if everyone agrees, we can just go ahead and plan a merge third and fourth quarter reports, so we have a semi-annual report to the board.
I have a problem with producing one report that covers the items that are necessary. I don't think we should rely on our past reports as the basis for our standard of creating the right kind of information. They were beginning styles, we chose certain kinds of things to discuss, but we have issues that we're really not weighing in on, kind of just telling them we did this and we did that. So, however you want to produce it as one report or not, it's the contents I'm concerned about.
Yes.
And that said...
Although if we don't discuss it, I have a little bit of an issue with, if we're not actually discussing those recommendations or issues, putting it into a quarterly report or an annual report when it wasn't fully discussed, there were no votes on it, that's a little bit tougher.
Well, now we did a third version of this without discussing the input to the first version from the second elements. In other words, back in October, we had a draft that was produced but not discussed.
That's right, we did not get to it.
I turned in 2 pages, 2.5 pages of information that I thought the committee should use to inform itself about what we need to tell the board. That was never discussed. And then I requested that we look at our work plan in relation to this, and I see that the second page of this draft does reflect the headings of the work plan, but nothing we have ever produced to do that task.
That's right, it's a draft. We're going to be discussing it today.
Okay.
Melissa, you had a comment?
So,
I'd like to have our group determine, is there a consensus or do we need a motion to combine our reports, make one report in January that covers the last 6 months? That's the first part of it. And then if that's so, let us, I think we need to take all of the information we have at hand, everything that's been submitted, and create that report without reviewing the fact that we haven't had prior discussions. So let's use this time to have those discussions, create our report we want to present in January based on the input that we have currently at the table and the reports that Betsy has provided, any other materials we have. So we can not be discussing the past, but rather learn from the past, use the experience, use the information we have at hand and create this report.
So do we have consensus on combining the third and fourth quarter reports? So anyone who is against that idea? All right, so we will move forward with one report that covers this last half of 2013. And there are, as Melissa said, there are multiple inputs from members on these topics. I have for viewers' ease, I have the documents on the wall. And I'd like you, can we use the annual draft as a starting point and flush it out? Are there any objections to that? Making changes as needed.
there are minor changes I have to the first page, but the second page, of course, is the meat.
Is what? Is the
It's
meat?
the meat.
Yes.
It's our work plan.
I
What
know.
have we done
I know.
to address our work plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a correction in the second paragraph on the annual review.
Let me just move to this. So we've got,
Just a point of clarification.
everyone see that okay? Okay.
Where the participants are, or the members, representatives are listed, change the word Lakeport to Lake County and Clear Lake Chamber.
Yes, you're right. That's my mistake. does that work? Or do you want Lake County Chamber of Commerce?
No,
and
no,
Chamber?
no. You
They
use the
kinda
word
include-
"and," that works.
Okay.
You could say chambers.
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 Okay. So these are all, again, as last year, we had a list of the topics that were discussed, and you also notice that I've put in that about the different groups that members of CLAC participated in, kind of showing the linkage of how CLAC members are involved in and made aware of issues, the whole web of watershed issues, bringing our expertise into our meetings because of our experience and participation in these groups.
I think it's valuable to list that because it certainly points out the variety of areas that CLAC members have participated in, so they're not, certainly not working in a vacuum without outside participation in other groups and bringing that back. I, for one, think that has value.
I have some specific comments to this list. The first bullet item is related to the Clean Water Program and that should be included. Presentation from Community Development Director on the Clear Lake Nutrient and Mercury TMDO compliance actions as implementation of the Lake County Clean Water Program. Because it's the Lake County Clean Water Program that is implementing the MPDS stormwater management.
So your suggestions are taking...
Well, let me do one more thing on that sentence.
Okay.
Remove the words "and mercury," because our program is not required to address the mercury issue. The Central Valley Water Quality Control Board informed us that the NPDES for stormwater pollution prevention is only addressing the TMDL for nutrients.
Okay.
So that doesn't have to be there. We don't have to worry about our concern about that. Then TMDL compliance actions implemented by the Lake County Clean Water Program. That's how I would put that. Implemented by.
Removing the...
Take out into
MPDES
the National
protocol.
Pollution District permit controls for stormwater, yeah, just compliance implemented by the Lake County Clean Water Program. Because that's too much detail. The thing we want to communicate is the Clean Water Program is the Clean Water Program. The people that sit on that Board of Supervisors who forget that they are actually the rulers of the Watershed Protection District that implements the Clean Water Program. So that's my concern, is that we educate them every time we get a chance. Your role
That's kind
is
of why I had
to
that level of
direct.
detail in there, because, the local, the public who are listening to this,
This is not to the public. This is directly to
To
the
the
Board
board.
of Supervisors.
I
This
know,
is
but
what
we know
they
that the
need to
public
know.
is also listening too.
I understand.
So
Every other
it-
opportunity I
it's our-
take to give that detail, I do that every day. But in this case, it's extremely important to me that they understand that the Community Development Director
Let's-
came and talked to us about these issues that they are in charge of.
So we have,
Why they're in charge of it, the NPDES program is something else. So I'm
okay,
just
so
asking for
putting
that,
in,
yeah.
so I guess with...
Or you could
we
put
can
it at the end
certainly-
here.
Yeah, we can certainly, I prefer, and if you insist, I will
No.
take out the detail of this, but I do want to, it absolutely makes sense to
Would you
show
consider
it's got
adding
the-
that after
No,
stormwater runoff?
it's
to
your
implement?
suggestion, I think we need to put it in, but
Okay.
I just would like to keep, as long as we have the correct wording for it, this level of detail so that it's
That's
part of
cool.
the big picture.
That's cool.
So I'm just trying to, so if you insist, I'll take it out. But
No,
I'd like to-
I asked you just to add it at the end
I know,
of
so
the
I'm-
sentence. That's fine. I don't have any objection to explaining about the NPDES permit because everybody
Okay,
does need
I
to
thought you were
understand this.
saying you...
No, it's not
taking that
wrong.
out.
I was just trying to emphasize the right level of communication, and that's fine too. So, thank you for that. And the second thing I would have to say is that Mr. Smythe did not do anything to educate us. He came here to make a sales pitch for his land trust property that he wants to buy. So, frankly,
I respectfully disagree with that.
I understand.
It was an education process as it pertains to protecting the lands around that touch Clear Lake.
I
So I
understand.
found it extremely informative, and to that end, had a presentation made to another group. Again, I think part of what we do is, I believe part of what we do is should be to help educate the public in Lake County. And that's part of what I take out of these meetings.
fair enough. I just voiced my opinion, and I
Yeah.
didn't expect it to be popular, but anyway, thank you. That's, the only other comment I would make is that when you say members participated in this and members participated in that,
Yes.
it implies that all of the members participated, and that's not really quite the message I think they should. We do have active participation, and it's really helpful that we do.
So would you suggest some members?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's
Individual.
individual members, you know,
Okay.
not as
Individual
committee or
members.
subcommittee or anything like that. We're just members of the
Okay.
group that did this.
That'll
But-
make it a little more clear then. Individual members participated in?
There you go.
Individual members, okay.
Yeah.
On that same line, I was thinking that the satellite imaging project, that would all be capitalized, or?
Yeah, the I, imaging, and P for project is
Okay.
the terminology, thank you. Yeah. It's imagery, IMAGERY is the name of the project it's
Thank you.
that we're paying for.
Should I put blue water too?
Nah,
Okay.
they know. On the third bullet there, members participated in discussion with county administrative officials and water resources staff regarding the watershed protection district and the local agency formation commission municipal service review. Because we also did those kinds of service to try to knit that together.
Local area formation,
Local agency formation commission. And then lowercase municipal service review. Thank you.
Could somebody, does somebody have the name of the presentation that Tom Smythe gave? It was like a Big Valley, it was that particular area, Big Valley. Oops, yeah. Like Long Tooley Point, or I'm not sure what they call that area that they're trying to, that I
Well,
guess
they
they purchased. or they're
Some
trying
of
to
the
purchase.
terminology used was the Big Valley watershed study.
I know what you're
I'm just not
talking about.
recalling
Yeah, I don't-
the entire.
There was some piece of property out near McGaw Point or McGaw Slough that, isn't that right? And it was the.
It's
Yes, and we
actually-
have we haven't purchased it, we have an option to purchase. We're in the process of raising the money for it. It's the shoreline property at Gosling.
I think there was an identified area.
There is.
They want to
It
consider.
There's a name
It
for
had a
it.
name.
Yeah.
I don't-
Sorry, I don't remember.
I could add that, you know, I could look back, because I know I have a copy of his presentation, and add that to this.
That'd be good.
When I have it, or if somebody gets it, I know there was a specific area. Okay, because I'd like to just analyze that.
I'm profoundly in favor of doing that, by the way. Preserving the marshes and the shoreline. As much as possible.
Are there other,
I'd like to ask the last three
Topics.
bullets, you know, there's a noun and a verb in front of almost everything, somewhere along there. Where's the active voice, present tense? What happened about weed and algae abatement activities?
Nothing.
What happened about the
discussions.
quagga mussel prevention program? What happened about the water quality issues? I mean, what are we saying we did?
certainly we had discussions on them.
So we could say discussion of, if you want, there would be a verb there and an implied subject.
I
in the
believe
sentence.
we also provided input to Water Resources staff while they were here on their weed and algae abatement activities. I think we could also
Could I make
say that.
a suggestion that the context of the weed and algae abatement activities is actually the Clear Lake Integrated Aquatic Plant Management Plan that we are responsible for providing public input to and addressing an annual review of, and then commenting on the new plan for with the state of California that is the guideline directing weed and algae abatement activities.
That's why-
And the committee has not yet, since this whole year, picked up on that mandate for us to look at that plan and the permit and all those things.
Absolutely. And you
So
see on
just
page
to
2,
say
maybe we
weed and
could-
algae abatement activities, what does that mean?
Okay, so we could flesh out the Lake Integrated Water Plant Management Plan. I did put kind of the beginning of that discussion in the regulatory requirements section of, how the topics that we address here and the management activities of the county are all related to, they're all linked in with this.
Sure, I'm just asking, what does this
Terms of
mean, weed and
updated-
algae abatement activities? That's all.
Discussion of, how about discussion of discussion of and input to the county's weed and algae abatement activities.
The lead-in sentence prior to all of those bullets states that the committee discussed topics of concern throughout the year,
I see.
including. So it would be redundant to put discussion.
So in those previous sentences, we should remove the terms discussion
Discussions
of,
of.
discussion of,
Yeah.
discussion of.
To be consistent.
Right.
That's fine.
And then
Okay. Thank you.
if the committee wants amplification of the statement weed and algae abatement activities, perhaps that could be a part of the addressing of regulatory requirements. Since, well, certainly, I don't know. It occurs to me that it might be better addressed in a more complete manner under that section, as would be possible in the water quality issues.
And I would just you add members, individuals participated in the West Side Regional Management Plan. Not watershed, it's water management, not watershed, that's a different animal. Because the committee, again, did not appoint a subcommittee to participate in that activity. It was individual members who did so.
Yeah, I just made that change.
Thank you.
Although it was a topic that we discussed, it wasn't just, it has been on our agenda, and we've had updates and some minor discussions on those issues. What?
We've discussed a lot.
But it was a correction,
No, it's
West
okay.
Side Integrated.
West Side Integrated Water Management
Okay.
Plan.
Oh, yeah, I'm mixing Clear Lake Integrated Watershed Management Plan and West Side Integrated Water Management. Okay, watershed.
It's very difficult for everybody to keep track of that, believe me, I understand.
All right. So back to those last 3 bullets, if we're, because of the intro sentence, I'm removing the verb, basically, in most of them.
So we don't need that extra verb in front of there. We discussed weed and algae abatement activities.
Yeah.
We discussed quagga mussel prevention program.
Well, how does everyone feel about moving those 3 items into a different section of the report and have a more expansive statement on each? Doesn't make sense.
They all belong to the issue of pollution prevention in the water, receiving water body. Every one of those.
Well, we also have from the 3rd quarter report, and I know this is just draft, but this cyanotoxin, my own personal, as a tribal employee, the cyanotoxin testing, we've already made some strong suggestions to County Water Resources about the importance of knowing what their plan is for this coming year in terms of how often they're going to test, where they're going to test, and how they're going to discuss this with the public, how it's going to be, basically, there's a lot of concern, a lot of unknown about the safety of the water and cyanotoxins, and the amount that they've done the amount of testing they've done is pretty minimal for such a large lake. So, when Karen came here, when Dr. Tate came here and said, does seem like the dog probably died of cyanotoxins. The water level was, there was an extensive, high level of a certain cyanotoxin in the area where the dog was, but there was no follow-up testing. The testing wasn't fast enough. There needs to be a protocol for testing. That's my own particular push from Big Valley to Lake County Water Resources. I've actually not gotten a response. I sent the email about a month and a half ago. But that topic, let me just finish it.
Sure.
That topic, I really feel that we need to make it very clear in this report that, and a strong recommendation is that level of detail of what their protocol is going to be, how they're going to, what cyanotoxins they're testing for, because obviously there's multiple kits. We're looking into purchasing our own, and there are, the kits that they're using doesn't test for all cyanotoxins. I'm sure we all know that. So I would like to move as much of this language into the into our final report that details our recommendations to the board regarding water resources.
Which language do you want to move?
The third quarter.
Sarah, if you're interested in that, particularly in that dog dying, there was an article that I sent to Betsy recently, which was about 100 elk died from poisoned water from cyano.
And I have to tell you, that article is
It's
posted
in-
on the
in
Lake County
Mexico.
Clean Water Program Facebook page,
And it was from,
so that people, see that.
yeah.
Yeah, you commented on it, as a matter of fact.
The water was sitting in these storage tanks, like farmers or ranchers' storage tanks. Elk drank water coming out of that, I guess, right? And they just, it was a mystery for a while. Why is there 100 dead elk laying around?
And then the tissue testing and it.
Yeah.
The two things I would say are, first, that there is a protocol. It's called the Voluntary Guidelines produced by the California Department of Public Health, which is the organization that has the Blue-Green Algae Toxicology Group run by Dave and Sarah. They are working with California Department of Public Health oversight of water systems for drinking water, but they are also working with the public health departments in all counties to implement that voluntary guideline. That voluntary guideline says when you post, when you don't go in the water,
So that's a
when you
drinking
don't.
water guideline?
No, it's a recreational
That's
guideline.
recreation.
It's a recreational guideline for when you post, when you say don't go in the water, when you don't come in contact with it, all the things that are already in place, have been for several years, that we need our public health department to be allowed to fully implement so that the public has a pretty good idea what to do. Their webpage has all this information on it. The
That's
Lake County
wonderful.
Public Health Department, Environmental Health Department has all this information on it. It's the public that doesn't get the information.
And
So
Flag should perhaps make a recommendation that those
Exactly.
parameters, that protocol be
That's right.
adopted
that's right. And then
for
the second
beginning
thing
in
is,
January.
the second thing that the California Department of Public Health Safe Drinking Water Division has been monitoring all of the drinking water suppliers who draw water out of the lake, monitoring before and after treatment the presence of cyanobacteria so that they can give some idea of what is being eliminated through what processes. Amy Little gave a presentation in March of this year
Yes.
to all the water purveyors, which I attended.
I was there as
And
well.
then she has communicated with me that they have done a second series to repeat that this summer and they're working on finalizing those reports that she did, and she'll apprise us of this when that's available. But one thing I noticed that throughout all of these discussions and all these issues around how we look at water, we don't talk to the water purveyors. We don't incorporate their input. We don't look at how they're handling the problem. We had a problem with CSA 21 this year where they had so much algae that they had to shut off the system. It wasn't cyanobacteria, it was just a whole bunch of algae. So I think we need to keep that in mind. There is information we're not considering.
And by the way, we haven't made a recommendation to the board.
Right.
That's right, it was in the
That
third
would
quarter
be-
report, and we never have gotten our third quarter report in. So it would have been timely.
What would have been? Well, it's always timely to
Our
let them
recommendation would
know.
have been timely if we had gotten a third quarter report in.
I'm sorry? Well, let's just make it though.
That's
Whatever
what we-
you do, whenever we do it, can we make that suggestion that we need to somehow incorporate the input from water purveyors as regulated by the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Division of the Public Health Department of the State of California, that we don't ever talk about. That would be helpful.
I agree, I agree. And there are probably other components of a testing program, a monitoring program that the county needs to develop, I mean, the volunteer
Absolutely.
recommendations, but Gary, do you happen to know in your updated Clear Lake Integrated Aquatic Lake Management Plan, if you happen to, in your QAP, in your assurance plan, I know it's not a pesticide issue, but often these QAPs and these monitoring plans discuss the wider range of activities that are happening in terms of monitoring and quality assurance. Was there any update whatsoever in terms of the cyanotoxin testing?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So,
I
and we
think there is
we will get
protocol.
copies of that.
I don't think there is a protocol.
A protocol for?
I don't think there is a protocol.
No, for
For
testing.
local determination of appropriate monitoring, appropriate testing, appropriate signage, appropriate communication, I don't think there is a protocol.
I don't think so either.
So,
That's why, yeah. So you're saying, you're suggesting use an already existing framework, they need to adopt.
that would be
it.
good.
Yes.
That Created by the State Department of
Adopt the
Public
existing
Health.
framework, yes.
That would be excellent.
Adopt the existing framework and make any additions so that it meets the needs of the community. I don't know, does does that framework address how often you test, where you test? I'm assuming it doesn't.
It is up to our environmental health department to determine how to comply with the law. The law does not require the recreational monitoring of more than E. coli or fecal coliform. The law does not require that they monitor for cyanobacteria or cyanotoxins. That is a US EPA ruling that is going
I
to take
know.
probably 20 years to
20
come
years.
down the
Yeah.
pike. In the meantime, the
Yeah.
Klamath River reservoirs have TMDLs for microcystis because of the toxicity to the fish. So there are things we could ask that they do to do fish tissue testing that would obviate all this little sampling, grab sampling, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, maybe it's coming, maybe it's gone. Test the fish. Fish bioaccumulate the toxins in their livers and their organs. So that is what they did up at Klamath River reservoirs.
Yeah, but I
USEPA.
guess you won't necessarily get the flash water quality issues. You know, if you've got the testing they did where the dog died, was, I think there were 2 tests, and one of them was very high and the next was very low.
And that's probably the part that we can't deal with. That's why we're talking about using satellite imagery to show.
So
where you
fish
have
tissue
certain things.
testing is, you know.
Fish tissue testing would tell you whether we have a high level of cyanobacteria in the lake that has the potential for producing toxins as a general piece of knowledge.
I know for
That would be helpful.
yeah.
Do
For-
we
for-
know that we have
For
this
my
problem?
particular program, I would never just rely on fish tissue.
No,
testing.
just as a
I would-
baseline to
I
say,
would
yes, we have a problem.
I would have water quality testing for sure.
Well, all we're saying is we should recommend that the county, through the Public Health Department, Environmental Health Department, Department of Water Resources, and other responsible agencies, come up with a definition of how it's going to address this.
Mike?
We don't have either at the moment. What's wrong with recommending that we do both?
Nobody's arguing it. Nobody's arguing it. So what I have on here is, why don't we get language, there's, because of the existing framework. And it's the California Department of Public Health. What was the name of it, Betsy?
Voluntary guidelines for recreational waters.
And actually, Karen Tate has been using that all along.
I know, but the county,
The county, the Department of
Department
Water
of Water.
Resources has covered the signs.
Signs.
I know.
So,
I know.
it's not that Karen Tate hasn't been using that protocol is what I'm trying to say.
Well, do we want to, and please, other people input as you wish. I think one of our problems is with the County of Water Resources. I think one of our main problems is with the County of Water Resources and how they have not been forthcoming about their program to the public. We don't, what I've noticed is that, and certainly our discussions here have touched on this, that there's not enough monitoring, there's not enough monitoring around the lake. There's only a few spots where they're monitoring, and we don't even know if they're testing all the cyanotoxins. There are fears that, there are people who've been affected by it, dogs that have died by it, and we can't really say for certain because there's not been a full-fledged program implementation on public safety. This is public health and safety issue. So it does appear that Water Resources has to ramp up their activities. Public health, obviously, with Karen Tate, they've done some testing.
I'd like to say in their defense that the agencies that we pay, like Water Resources and special districts and people that treat the water, they are telling us that if the US EPA defines a maximum contaminant level for cyanotoxins, and then each of us is required to pay for the monitoring and then the treatment and so forth, that the cost of actual treated water will be astronomical. And I think that the Department of Water Resources is kind of in between those two sides of the issue. So, that there is no regulatory requirement to monitor for cyanotoxins. There is no regulatory requirement to monitor for cyanobacteria.
There's no MCL for them.
So, right.
It will take
So,
a decade.
I think that's what we're looking at, is asking our environmental health department to come up with what they think is a reasonable protocol for us to do that. That would be my suggestion.
Going along with this discussion, I think that CLAC's recommendation of a collaboration between our Public Health Department and Department of Water Resources to produce their own program/protocol for a continuous testing program that will better meet the needs of the local community. That needs to
And I
be
concur
fleshed
with
out.
that if you let the public participate in the creation of that protocol. These same people are already doing this.
Well, Betsy,
Okay?
how would you say that then? How would you
Well,
amend that
maybe form a
recommendation?
technical advisory group that includes the public, not just
Okay,
leave
well,
the
let's
public
put some
out. I don't
verbiage
know.
in there.
I don't know where to go with that,
I mean, perhaps a recommendation that they come back with a proposal for adopting a more comprehensive testing protocol. So they make a report to the supervisors, the two departments, and maybe this isn't appropriate, but I'm thinking, given this discussion today, that those two departments collaborate and come back with a proposal for a more comprehensive testing of the waters, whatever, however it needs to be said. We all know I'm not a scientist. And that be produced, that be presented to the Board of Supervisors, at which time the SUBs can weigh in on it and the public can weigh in on it.
It's too
And
late.
make
If
further
it goes
rec-
before the Board of Supervisors, it's too late.
No, it is not.
Yes.
No, Betsy,
Yes.
if it, excuse me, if it goes to the Board of Supervisors as a proposed or a draft protocol, not as a complete plan.
I would have to beg your indulgence. I have participated as a member of the public, assiduously dedicated to understanding the rules, regulations, and processes they use. If we are not allowed to participate in the formulation of that proposal,
Then change the verbiage, Betsy.
I'm not writing the verbiage.
Make a
You guys are writing
recommendation.
the verbiage.
No,
Oh,
make a
okay.
recommendation for the verbiage for our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Sure.
While you're thinking of
That would
Betsy,
take care of
I
that
got you.
concern.
Jerry,
I
you
got
said-
And I just, I like the idea of testing the liver of a fish, because that fish has been all over the lake. When we go out and test water samples, it can be clear in one spot and deadly in another, but a fish is all over the lake, so you're going to get a really accurate reading of what's going on with the lake if we do some testing
Well, UC
on a
Davis
fish's
did
liver.
that for
So
experiments,
I would like to see that in the component, at least a suggestion.
Well, that needs to
That
be a
be-
part of
that
it,
that be
part of the
explored.
protocol.
Well, okay, so we can get that detailed about the type of testing we want to see. We can say fish tissue and water testing program.
I don't think we should even limit it to a collaboration between the Lake County Division of this and Department of Water Resources. We should say that the issue is...
That was Melissa's suggestion because
You
of...
should say that the issue is that we really
involvement.
do not have a protocol for that, and we need to develop whatever sort of technical input.
Okay,
You see
so
what I
then
mean?
we expand.
Right.
I use the collaboration between those
Sure.
two departments because they are the drivers, if you will, of water testing at this point, even though all of the water purveyors do their own testing. But
It's not separate, though. It's the same water.
I understand that, Betsy, but in a meeting I was in with 3 water purveyors last week, it's obvious that there needs to be a lot more communication between all of our water purveyors, their testing, and everyone else in the county who does testing. And at this point, there is
Right.
not that collaboration.
That's right, that's what we're talking about.
And so, let's expand the recommendation.
Okay, how about something like this?
Well, you need a technical advisory group to come up with the problem statement first. So
You
that
need
you can
members of the
then make
public
a
to come up with
recommendation for the solutions.
You want members of the public to come up with the problems?
No, a technical advisory group to come up with a problem
Rather than-
statement.
rather than
to
the-
define what the needs are from understanding the problem statement is really important. The Klamath River Reservoir TMDL has a 114-page problem statement, from which they then decided how they were going to deal with the monitoring.
You don't think Department of Water
testing and stuff?
Resources and Environmental Health will come up with a problem statement?
I would like there to be a technical advisory group that incorporates more than those 2 entities, because those 2 entities thus far have achieved what we have today. So I'd like to expand their capacity, if that's at all possible. They are the agencies that we have given us what we have now,
They are,
okay?
they are.
And they need help. I've been trying to figure out a way for CLAC to be that support service,
Thank you, Betsy.
participate in that directing of resources.
Other input on that?
I think I'd hear from Gary on this particular discussion.
Well,
How do you see this idea?
The problem with testing is you can test one area in a very short time period, and it's going to be either high or low. That's the problem with testing. It's a highly variable condition.
It's extremely ephemeral.
Our thinking is it's much better to to have a standard that is more tied to, oh, the water's green, don't go in it. I mean, that would be, I think, perhaps a more usable standard, like the World Health Organization standard, which is tied to the color of the water. So you warn people generally, don't go in it. Whether it's high or low, don't go in it. Because the testing is very unreliable, I think, as an indicator, because you can test one site, it's high, but very close by it'll be very low. So that's the big issue with the testing. It can be deceptive, both fearful, or give you a false sense of security. That's our thinking.
That's why when you develop a monitoring program, I've had to develop monitoring programs for our programs at Big Valley. You look at what are you trying to find, you know, what are the conditions out there, what are you trying to find, and you set your monitoring locations and frequency based on that. So yeah, obviously a little bit of testing is going to give you, you know, not be that helpful.
The fact of the matter is going out and testing where that dog supposedly ran into problems, high one time, same site, low, very low the next time. That's the problem.
But see, the monitoring program could be that the testing is happening in bloom areas.
Where do you take? I mean, how many tests do you take? Where do you take them? I mean, it's a big lake. I think a standard tied more to the fact that there's a presence of cyanobacteria. It's so thick that the water's green.
That's part of the decision-making process.
Please.
Don't go in it.
That's part of the decision-making process, yes.
Two different issues. One is the question of how we should come up with our own understanding of the set of problems we have, such as the ephemeral nature of the toxins, the number of types of monitoring programs that exist, the communication with the water purveyors. Those are all needed to be defined in a problem statement. All of these disparate concerns and protocols. The protocol from the state of California is exactly what Gary's talking about. If it looks like this, don't get in it. That's the protocol. That's what the signs say on the beach. So that is not the same as defining what's a safe practice for exposure, and the safe practice that's the most critical that we do have is the safe drinking water. And we have those purveyors and they are monitoring. So there are tools. We just have not collaborated on defining how we're going to lay them all out. We have this constant issue of is it monitoring and is it ephemeral and can we tell and all that thing. We need to have this organization sit down and figure out what is appropriate for Lake County and Clear Lake.
Absolutely. That's what
my
developing a monitoring
recommendation.
plan.
Including monitoring, including testing, including signage, including, you know, all those things. Identifying protocols.
From a federal point of view, the quality assurance plans that we develop include all of those components. Why are you testing? What are you going to do with that information? What the actions?
So the recommendation for this is to say to the board that that process has not occurred, that we need to have a definition of what is an appropriate level of monitoring, testing, signage, communication, and so forth to determine our best appropriate plan for dealing with the cyanobacteria.
And before we can establish that, we have to establish a relationship with all of the various agencies and organizations that are already doing part of this work around the county, which does not exist now.
That's right.
And that's something that this committee has talked about for years. And that was also another statement I made at the meeting last week with the water purveyors. People have got to start talking to one another and have one central point of data collection or whatever you want to call it. And those particular people were very much in favor of that. So somebody's got to take the lead.
I would like to suggest that the task at hand is going to be a root issue for the update of the Clear Lake Watershed Management Plan. That plan is where we define what our programs are supposed to be for protecting our water and our watershed. That update is supposed to start in January. The stakeholders group has been formed.
Okay. Can we go into that in a minute?
Sure.
Actually, I'd like to get back to what Mike was saying. We should put these different entities why not put the different entities that are not collaborating, but have pieces of, the picture in this report? We already know environmental health is, and public health and water resources, so who else is the water purveyors?
That's not what I was saying.
Okay.
I'm pretty emphatic in my assertion that this committee's responsibility is to work through the Department of Water Resources or the Watershed Protection, now coming up the Watershed Protection District. We are supposed to work with the county agencies and report to the board, okay? We're here to represent public input, tribal input, specific organizations that sit on this group. It's the responsibility of the county to work with us. It's not our responsibility to go beat up on them until they finally decide that they're going to work with us. That's the Board of Supervisors' job. If anybody needs to be pushed into doing something, our job is to report to the Board of Supervisors. We need you to direct them to work with us. It's not our responsibility. We don't have the authority to reach out into a department. We can't go to special districts and say, you need to come work with us. We don't have that authority. That authority rests with the board. We need to make recommendations to the board. We need to say to the board, this is what we believe we need. You need to make this happen. Because they have the authority, not us.
If I may, in reference to Mike's remark, that's separate from what I'm talking about, or what my understanding is of this recommendation. I think, I'm not disagreeing with Mike's statement, but I think we need to identify, for purposes of getting a collaborative group that deals with the monitoring / testing, which I believe are, in my mind, are synonymous, because you can't have monitoring if you don't have testing, vice versa. But I think we need to identify all of the entities that we think, at this point, need to collaborate to come up with this overall program plan for the care and feeding of Clear Lake.
Melissa, I believe, if you'll forgive me, it's called the Resource Management Committee. It's been in existence since 1990.
Betsy, let's not discuss history, because we...
No, it's what we have. They are assigned to that committee every year.
If I may...
It is in existence.
I made a comment at the beginning of the meeting that we don't need to, I think it's going to do our goal today to rehash history. We're aware of the resource management, but it hasn't mentioned in several years. So our recommendation, which we are charged with now, made to the Board of Supervisors, who we are responsible to, is to come up with recommendations for future actions that will create solutions that I think everyone at the table wants to see happen. So that's why I respectfully ask that we not start rehashing the RMC.
I beg your pardon, but it is not rehashing. It's an existing committee. If you look at the assignments of supervisors on their 2013 committee assignments, 2 supervisors are assigned to the Resource Management Committee. It still exists. It still has legal authority under that designation, and we need to ask it to function.
I respectfully...
That's all I'm saying.
I respectfully...
It's not history. It's still here.
The fact of the matter is it hasn't met for several years, and we don't want to wait on something that hasn't met for several years. Don't give me that look.
I'm sorry, I just don't understand. If it hasn't, so what?
It hasn't, you know that CLAC has recommended that this thing get revitalized, but let's look at paragraph 2.
All right.
We're all on this, I believe we're all on the same page with that, but We certainly could put the language in there that this is the purview of the Resource
No,
Management
if you
Committee.
think it will just go nowhere, then list 100 agencies.
I'm afraid that anything
And
with
go
the-
ahead and list 100 agencies and
No,
say et cetera at
local
the
ag-
bottom.
The local agencies.
That's how many there are.
The local agencies.
That's how many there are.
Okay, if you want to count all of the,
I do.
no,
You have to include everybody. The cities, the tribes, the public organizations, the North Shore Business Association, the water purveyors. There are at least 100 entities here that need to participate in creating our watershed protection plans.
I suggest if
Truly.
we're going to refer to the RMC, then we only list the agencies that are listed in the makeup of the RMC. I would prefer not to refer to the RMC.
I'm with
because
you
it
on that one, because
doesn't
I think
function.
that is too limited. You've
Okay.
talked me into it.
how does the second paragraph meet the concerns of everybody? First statement.
Technical Advisory Committee to determine the protocols necessary for compliance with, something like that? Just leave it at a Technical Advisory Committee? They have one for the satellite imagery, which is really part of that whole collaboration already.
I think we need to show the departments that are responsible for.
Let's go back to what Mike said.
Promoting
The
this.
issue is that we don't have the ability to get the agencies that the Board of Supervisors directs to participate in a process that the Clear Lake Advisory Committee is involved, or wants to be involved in. Is that not the key here? I'm not sure.
But that's our message, in that we're saying to the Board of Supervisors, this is what these groups need to work together for this monitoring and testing program. We're not directing it to these agencies, we're directing it
No.
back to the Board of
Yeah,
Supervisors.
we all know that.
Okay. So
Yes.
then we want to talk about what are these agencies and how CLAC is engaged in that process?
Well, I think,
Me too.
referencing Mark's statement, I think we need to make this strong enough so it's not a recommendation that is heard one day and forgotten at the adjournment of that meeting. We need to make a serious recommendation with timelines. Now, in the final report 2 years ago, whenever I was the outgoing chair, we put recommendations with timelines, and they weren't adhered to. They were not responded to by the relevant departments. So I think that, I would love to see timelines put in, and then I would like to see CLAC monitor those timelines and draw to the Board of Supervisors' attention if those timelines aren't met. Because if they're not met, then everything you are sitting here for hours and hours is for naught.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So why can't we tell the Board of Supervisors that? What is it about, what is it about this group sitting here today that you're not willing to tell the Board of Supervisors that we've already made recommendations to that you ignored? And we have a problem with that. We're more than willing to do volunteer work. We're more than willing to participate in a committee, whose direction is to bring you recommendations on how to return the beneficial uses of the lake. But if you're going to ignore us, dissolve the committee. Don't ignore us. Do what you're doing by implication directly instead of just leaving us hanging on the hook. Why can't we say that to these people?
Why can't we include the report with the earmarks that you prepared as leading the chair, and add this to the report and say specifically, these were the earmarks and requests from year such and such that has not been followed through. So again, here's another report with these actions haven't been followed through, and we're again making these same requests on top of these requests. Why can't we just add that into this one?
We have done that before. I don't know if I've got that information, that particular report handy. Okay.
We should just add it to this report and say, here's one that you didn't respond to. Are we going to get the same results?
We certainly have a list.
And going to Mike's remark, I think that if we have as part of this report, we highlight those recommendations with the dates they were made, and lead-in paragraph is, these recommendations were made, these are the dates they were made, and to date, PLAC has seen no progress, no response. Why are we here?
Well, the other thing is, we give recommendations. They don't have to take our recommendations.
Oh, we know.
Okay, and the fact that they don't take our recommendations, they will have to, the day of reckoning comes when people go to the polls. And earlier even, because they're hearing back from the public. That's why I like that it's on TV, because everybody who is watching that or taping it or whatever is hearing that we're making specific recommendations that have to do with public health and safety, that for whatever reason, or for, with the Clogger program, the economic and environmental necessity, and they are not taking those on, and they are not taking our recommendations. The public hears that, and their responsibility is then to go to their own supervisors and say, why aren't you doing that? It seems reasonable what CLAC is asking for. It seems important what CLAC is asking for. So we're doing our part in making them aware of it and making our recommendations very clearly, and it's up to them whether they're going to take it or not. To browbeat them on it, I don't know, is that...
I think just a listing with the date. And I think we're fine when do a listing that there are repetitive recommendations for the same thing.
Yes.
Over a variety, a long time, different times, and it speaks for itself.
And I just want what you said, not a matter of why are we here, it's a matter of why are we not responding to our requests?
Exactly.
Because we know why we're here, or we wouldn't be here.
No, that's true. It's true. I was being
But
brief.
We're after our usual break time. If y'all would like to, if everyone's okay with a 10-minute break, I would like to, if Melissa could pull the previous report with some deadlines. We can.
You know what I did? I left my large notebook back at the office because I only brought with me last month's reports and this month. Forward. But I do have it on my computer, and I have it in my records.
Okay.
I've got a full
Well, let's see what we
copy
can
of the
pull
report.
together for adding those items that, with the timelines, and that is from like a 2011 report.
Yeah, well, let's see.
I guess the overall statement would be that we want the board to understand that we can show that we have attempted to fulfill the mission of the committee, but have been thwarted in that process on an almost constant basis.
Well, I think,
They have not accepted recommendations. I don't know if that's thwarting, but I think it's two issues. I think the thwarting is more the inability to receive timely information and allow us to provide input.
There's no cooperation between this committee
I would
and
call
the
that
parts of
Anybody.
the system
Not
that
thwarting.
we have to cooperate with in order to function. In order for us to function, we have to have that relationship with those other agencies and entities.
So it's 10:20, let's take a break till 10:30, come back and keep moving through this. Good job, everybody.
Gotta have time to take a little swim, you want to go?
You could say the California Department of Public Health and just leave it at that. Because that's really that's what Karen said, she and DWR were working from. Yeah, there you go, for recreational
California Department
waters.
of Public Health voluntary guidelines for recreational waters should be adopted
They are adopted.
by lake, they
By-
should be
by Karen
utilized
Tate,
by
yeah.
lake.
Right?
full- But Karen Tate is not the only, public
That's
health isn't
right.
the only.
That's right. The only
Involved.
agency involved.
Yes.
Right.
should be adopted by all responsible county and, well, we can't say city, but the cities should also take this up, county agencies. Does that make sense?
And it might even say, and additional warning signage component, because like I said, we always have that sign up. So maybe an additional warning signage when the levels are high, something.
You know, Jerry, here's what's going on. The county does not have a public information office. They have a public information officer who is not a trained public information office professional, but they have never developed a protocol for communication at any of those levels necessary to say, okay, when this situation occurs, this is where you go, KXBX, the tribes, whatever it is. They have not got a protocol, a communications protocol in place.
It happens though with certain departments.
Yeah,
No.
it does happen with certain
Yeah.
departments.
And you probably,
But this goes to our not having an emergency operations plan available to the public to understand how to engage in disaster preparedness. We just don't have those communication systems. No.
Okay, does that final paragraph work for everybody? Does it capture?
Sure. Responsible agencies, leave county out because the city's responsible agency.
Yeah, I mean, we can't ask the cities to do it, but they really should do it.
Well, yes, we can.
Well, not
They have public
not a recommendation to
safety
the Board of
responsibilities.
Supervisors. Oh, I know they do.
Excuse me.
But the board can
I
recommend
gotcha.
to the cities, can't they?
Excuse me. Yeah.
It's a health issue.
The recommendation, if we're
County and
making
city.
a recommendation about the health of the residents and visitors of the County of Lake, our recommendation needs to include somehow the cities being involved.
Can't leave them out.
And it is the responsibility of the Board of Supervisors to make that happen.
And
Absolutely.
enforced, maybe, I was thinking.
Yes.
We have a problem.
Exactly.
We've been
Word
ordered to take
enforced,
care of it.
sure.
Should be implemented, and where's the word go? Oh, adopted and enforced? That would be good, because enforced would let us call
Well, they're
this.
voluntary guidelines. How do you enforce those? Who enforces them at the state level?
Yeah, you're right.
And implemented.
Implemented.
Mhm.
That's good. Adopted and implemented.
by all responsible county agencies.
I would change that last sentence to by all responsible county and city agencies. Cities, however.
Well, I mean, okay, county and city agencies.
Mhm. All the jurisdictional entities in the, within the jurisdictional boundary of the county of Lake,
Okay.
which include the state parks.
Well,
All the jurisdictional entities.
yeah, I mean,
It's not just the
Just
county.
take county
it's
and
just-
city out.
Just all the jurisdictional entities within the county of Lake.
yeah. Oops. Where did you go?
And you have to scroll down again. And you have responsible by the two places.
There you go. That gets at everybody.
Okay.
By all responsible, by all the jurisdictional.
Implemented by,
By, and just
Oh.
take out by all the jurisdictional agencies in the county of Lake. There you go.
okay.
Okay. That covers everything.
Are there any issues with these two paragraphs?
We do not have any factual knowledge that cyanotoxins could put Clear Lake on the US EPA 303B list. We do not
We don't
have
have
that
that.
knowledge.
Yes, we do.
You have-
Because impairment, and it kind of goes into.
On paper.
Dean's-
Can you cite a document that says that that will happen?
if we show impairment of a beneficial use, I'm sorry, you were.
No, I'm asking you. Have you seen a reference that says Clear Lake will be placed on this list if it develops this level of site talking?
That is how it works. If you show impairment, not you show impairment, but through testing and through documenting, which we don't do enough of in this county. If you show impairment, then you submit that data to the state, and and what's supposed to happen is it goes on to the 303D list.
What's supposed to happen? Have you seen any written statement that says,
We have
if you guys don't do this, we're going to put you on the 303D list?
No, that's not how they operate, Betsy. How they operate is you show impairment. Have you seen the assessment list that they last did, which shows that McGaw Slough and other water bodies in Lake County could not go on the impairment list because there was 2 missing sets of data. That's all. Otherwise, it would have been impaired for E. coli, and it would have no longer been swimmable.
I don't disagree that those are things that should happen.
That is how that's how the system is set up. If you don't, I think that we need to put it out there that impairment, that is how TMDLs work. That is how the Clean Water Act works. If you and that was, I was going to answer your question or your comment, Dean, that the Clean Water Act says all water bodies have to be fishable and swimmable. If you have a contaminant that is impairing fishable and swimmable or any other beneficial use that has been listed for the water body, and you can document that, then it gets reviewed to be put on the 303D list. And the 303D list is the list that requires that TMDLs then get developed to address the impairment so that those beneficial uses can then be, utilized again.
We already have that.
It's called restored.
We have it for nutrients and mercury.
Excuse me for being ignorant, but isn't Clear Lake already on the list?
Yes,
For
that's what I
nutrients
just said.
and mercury.
We already have
For
that.
your misunderstanding, it's only for those 2 contaminants. You can be impaired for other contaminants, which creates a whole nother TMDL. That's why you have a nutrient TMDL and a mercury TMDL. You don't have just one TMDL. It's not, oh, we have an impaired water body. We're impaired for nutrients and mercury.
I guess what I would say is I think in theory you're correct. I see a great reluctance on the part of the federal and state agencies to add any further stressors on the government system here to take care of the lake.
Do you have a letter showing that? I haven't seen
I
it.
asked you that. Do you have a letter showing that?
I know how the system works.
Are they threatening to us? Do we have a notification? No.
No,
We're
because
just
we don't
saying
have any
in general,
data.
we think this is how it works. We don't know that anything is really
Is
being
there
done
an
to
issue
address it
with
here.
presenting
That
this
is
to
how
the
it works,
supervisors?
Betsy. That is
It is how it works. We
Yes.
don't have any knowledge that any agency is coming to our county to say,
That's
you're
right.
about to be put on the
No,
303 list.
that's not how they operate. Yeah, and no, I have no knowledge of
Okay.
that.
Getting back to the agenda and what we're trying to create here, is there any objection by anybody that what we have under watershed issues should not be said or put forth to the supervisors?
I believe we should mention that the new NPDES permit requires the creation and implementation of a multi-jurisdictional management work group, and that management work group has not yet been formed. That is something that is, we're in the current permit year. Gary, I'm sure knows this is the case.
Would that be more appropriate, I'll zoom down to, regulatory requirements?
Could
That's
be.
what should
Sure.
fit.
Okay.
So let's put it in there. But making that statement, what's our recommendation? I mean,
Our
it should be
recommendation is that
obvious,
they do it.
however, I think we need to state
Just
that.
do it.
Okay, can you restate that?
I would say Water Quality Order 2013-001-DWQ
I have to start all.
requires
2013-001.
Oops.
No, cursor moved. That is annoying on those tablets, isn't it?
Yeah.
0001. 0001-DWQ
DWQ.
requires formation of a management work group for implementation of the current permit. That Clack should say to the board, you need to do that. You need to do that.
And this, and when did that requirement start? Was that the June 1st?
Sorry, July 1st?
July 1st.
Of this year
Okay.
is the permit, first year of the permit.
So about this.
Beginning, you could say comma, after comma, beginning July 1st of 2000,
This work group has not.
has not been formed. That work group, through the store permit, be able to address some of those issues that we're
I
concerned about.
think we need at this point what has or has not happened in this case.
I don't know.
So it went into effect July 1st, but we don't, you're not aware of any action in the department?
I can't address the specifics of what that.
You know what this is about is the Clean Water Program Advisory Council, which is including the cities and the county, plus the Watershed Protection District, plus staff of the Department of Water Resources and other agencies, has responsibility for implementing the permit through work groups. So there's a municipal street sweeping work group, there's a illicit discharge detection and elimination work group, there's a pre and post construction control program work group that all the planning people, all the public works people do. There's a public education outreach work group, which I'm the chair of, that you guys are the named extension of. There was a requirement with the new permit that we form a management team so that the coordinators of the programs within the cities and the watershed protection district actually identified the priorities for implementing the new permit requirements. That's the piece that hasn't been done yet. So they have complied with the notice of intent, they submitted their fee, we completed our annual report, it was submitted by the deadline. The Department of Water Resources and Community Development staff, 3 people went to the November 20th meeting with the Central Valley Water Quality Control Board. We're waiting to hear back on whether their changes are going to impact what we're going to have to comply with. We still don't know what that is, but our management work group is a permit requirement.
Well, do you think the reason why, I mean, if they haven't come back from, if there haven't been full decisions of how to implement this?
It's in the guidance document that was submitted with the original notice of intent on July 1st. There's a guidance document that says this department will do this, that department will do the other thing. It's in the public record.
So I wonder, Gary, if the fact that in your knowledge of this and you're involved, I mean, I'm assuming you're involved in some way for water resources,
This is under the we're talking under the stormwater permit.
but aren't there any components for water resources in there, or is it all just?
Here's what happened. Right up until July 1st, Rick Cowell was the coordinator for community development, the
Right.
guy that worked on the annual report and all these compliance
Is Will
issues.
Evans, yes.
Is Will Evans, who worked for him. Gary and Tom were not engaged directly in the development of the new program plans.
But now it's moved over.
Legally, it's moved over to Scott De Leon. These guys are still not involved in implementing the program.
It's still in process, it hasn't moved over.
It was legally moved over to Scott as the manager of the Watershed Protection District, which does not have any staff. It does not have any structure. It's been held together by these sort of makeshift relationships. That's why they demand that we form a management work group. The permit.
They demand that
The
you
permit
management
requires
because
that
the
you
county
have-
of Lake didn't have. no,
That you have a
makes sense.
management work group to implement permit. That's why the permit asks for that. The first cycle of the permit didn't demand that you have a management team.
Now
The
it
new
does.
permit says, yes, you have to have a management team.
So my question, which Gary can't answer, is is there a lack of activity going on because there's no management? I mean,
Yes, there
Yes,
is a lack
there's
of
a lack of
activity going
activity.
on because there's no management work group. That's correct.
And
There is
and-
nothing
a lack of
happening to
compliance? Is there
fulfill
a
this
lack of
permit.
compliance
What?
There's a lack of compliance with the new requirements because, no, the different departments, the different divisions, the different work groups that are there are not actually working because this team.
There's
this,
two, there's
management
two
team
parts
isn't
of this.
formed.
There are 4 minimum control measures that are already in place. Planning, public works, law enforcement, construction, post-construction erosion control, municipal good housekeeping, and illicit discharge detection and elimination. Those are in existence because we have already accomplished that part of the permit. The new permit adds additional requirements that haven't yet been addressed by the management that has to be addressing these things, to develop those monitoring programs, for example.
And part of the
That's
reason
the
that it
new,
hasn't been
all those other
addressed
things are still there.
is that they haven't even planned a meeting yet.
Right, to discuss how to implement the permit.
What, if anything?
But there is implementation of the permit going on
The
in other
existing
areas.
standard that was already established in the first cycle of the permit continues because
Continues.
that's how you do it. The new requirements have not been addressed. The new
So
requirements.
the different components are not working on those new requirements at all. I'm just trying.
As far as I know.
I'm just trying to understand.
As
We
far as
know
I
that
know.
the management team, the management work group has not been formed.
That's right. So
But-
they're not addressing the new permit requirements, and we're
Of the
inching
management work group not
halfway.
being formed. But all of the actual work of implementing this, has that been stopped?
No,
Okay.
the basic system that was already established in the first permit cycle still continues. The new permit requirements are not being addressed. The new permit requirements.
Does that tie in at all to that November 20th meeting? Are they waiting for something from the?
There is one aspect of the new permit requirements that remains to be, it's not decided, but 99% of the rest of the requirements are already defined in the new permit.
So is this what she typed good enough, or do you want more
This
specifics
work
in
group
there?
needs a preventing coordinate, I wouldn't say preventing coordinate, it just has not yet been formed to coordinate and implement the new requirements. Just say formed to. I don't want to say it's preventing coordination, because that's kind of
That sounds like what
assuming.
you're saying, though. That's why I'm trying to get clear on that.
Well, if the
Well, if you
assumption
wanna
is that
get
failure to do this
technical-
prevents
Well, it does.
from, I want it just to be pointed out to the board that they're not getting this done.
So can you, at
So-
the end of that
That's all.
sentence,
That's
can you
good.
just request
There
that
it is,
they?
right
That's
there.
good, that's good, that's
Okay.
good, thank you. Because that's a really important issue for GLAC to understand.
Technical reason it hasn't been done is that there is a requirement that it be done under the Brown Act, and there hasn't been a meeting.
Mike,
No, he's talking about the advisory council.
it's-
The advisory council.
Yeah, the advisory council.
There hasn't been a meeting of the management group
Since the
has to
new
be
permit.
formed at a public meeting,
Right.
and they haven't scheduled the meeting.
On the Board of Supervisors agenda.
No, it's.
No, it doesn't
Scott
have any-
Gillian.
Doesn't have anything to
Scott
do with the
Gillian
board.
is in charge of the, he's the legal wet signature on the permit. He is the man who's in
He's the
charge of the
manager.
whole stormwater program. That
So they
has
don't
not
even have to
happened.
mention this at a Board of Supervisors hearing,
What's
the development of this.
Say that again?
They don't even have to mention at the Board of Supervisors the development of this meeting. Scott just needs to set a meeting and put it in the paper. And
I think it needs to
You
be.
don't
because
even
of
have
the
to put
Brown
it in,
Act.
you don't
Well,
even
he's
have to
saying
put
the
it
Brown,
in the
the
paper.
Brown Act compliance with it.
This is, ladies, this is something that has been in place for 8 years. 8
Okay,
years.
moving-
So the
I know.
8-year-old
The
advisory
management work
council.
group, whatever. We
Okay.
just all speak different languages,
All right.
obviously.
Go up that next paragraph and take those numbers off the end.
Yeah, that dot
No,
001
back up where we were.
document
Yeah.
at the end of that thing.
001,
Sorry.
that's when your
The
cursor.
end of the first
Next
paragraph.
paragraph
Top
up
of it.
at the end.
No, no.
Next
No.
word.
One
Oh, right here.
paragraph up.
Yeah,
Right
right there.
Good deal.
That would good.
These new tablets, the touchpad is so
I
sensitive.
know mine doesn't.
It drives me crazy. The cursor just goes up to something else. And it just really irritating. Okay. Anyway, thank you. That's important for the moment.
be done.
I think we beat it to death here.
Yeah,
Well, please note the first
No, those are
paragraph
the
that
two
brings in the
regulatory
aquatic
issues.
plant management plan.
sorry.
The first paragraph, draft language is about the integrated aquatic plant management plan, and the update, required update, and CLAC's involvement, or lack of involvement, because we were not asked to review it. We were not able to get any opportunities for input.
The plan actually calls for an annual review of itself.
Yeah,
That has never happened.
I was figuring how to put that in there, too.
So actually understanding what is transpiring in response to the new permit for the aquatic pesticides means we all need to go back and look at what has been done with the previous requirements and the existing plan, and then tell them what they need to know, because we haven't done our job.
I did get a copy of the quality assurance plan from Carolyn this morning, so I'll email it out to everybody. And perhaps we can put it on the agenda for January.
Anything else we have to do with this? Funding sources.
Are we putting recommendations on the fourth quarter report only?
It's a combined.
Yeah, we're combining, we're taking the third quarter.
Okay.
What I did, all I pulled from the third quarter one so far was the cyanotoxins and public health
Okay.
component. You could certainly comment on the vote for CLAC's not approval of the Healthy Lake Tax ordinance as it stood at that point. I mean, we can certainly put that in the fourth quarter.
We did not have a quorum at any time to do that.
Sorry?
We didn't actually have a quorum to do that in our meetings, to comment on the Healthy Lake Tax.
That was nine people. The vote was 5 to 3 to 1.
She was
That's
talking
definitely
about
more.
Oh,
motion
it's
to not
October
support.
10th?
Yeah,
Right.
that was a fourth quarter report, but which, as you know, never was good. Anyway,
Talking about the funding for a healthy lake.
Safe lake.
Pardon me?
About a safe lake.
Well, regardless of the nomenclature.
Safe Lake tax.
Yeah, well, it's been called everything else. Since we have a quorum today, is there any interest in readdressing that item?
It's
As
not
it-
on the agenda.
Excuse me, Mike, I expected that comment, if I may finish my comment. Seeing as how it is part of, it's on the agenda insofar as we're discussing it in the context of our report. So is it totally outside the realm of possibility to readdress that issue?
Only if you consider additional input to alternatives for funding and not assume that the tax measure is the only option.
I let it drop.
We could certainly put the minority and majority discussion of the Healthy Lake sales tax in the annual report. I think we should.
I think we should wait until
The fact we
January.
discussed it is fine.
I think that we should have a discussion of each of these things in January.
But this is an annual report. There were, this is a topic that came up in CLAC meetings, and we had a vote on it, on the sales tax ordinance as it stood.
Okay,
And,
that's fine.
I mean, there is a funding section.
That's okay. Tell them what we voted. 531. Let it be.
Yeah, they've already known that. So, but.
Oh, it's already been reported.
No, they asked a question at a board meeting and they were told.
Is there a problem with that?
My problem is that I believe this committee is being used as a tool for their ill-thought-out plans, rather than allowing an open discussion of all of the possible choices to be made. They said they wanted to tax, we're supposed to say okay. That's my objection to this. I don't like
You
that
think they're using the
approach.
committee to do that?
I think that's that's what I see happening, but we voted, I'm good to go. Tell them we voted.
There is a sentence in here about a stronger effort being needed to submit complete grant applications for lake programs. There were, as far as I know, every proposal submitted this year by DWR to EPA and state DWR was not funded.
That's right.
And
That's what we were talking about.
319H and
Or they weren't made timely.
No, not 319H, it was for Prop 84.
Prop 84 with DWR.
Round 2 funding through the integrated
There were also
regional water
319H
management.
applications.
And none of the projects were funded.
Okay. I know there have been some comments in past CLAP meetings about, so I just want to make sure that we, if the members are okay with this, that we capture those comments of the way we're viewing how the county is submitting grant applications, or DWR in general, that they're not including, that they're not strong enough, they're not meeting with CLAC or other, entities that could help inform them.
I'd like to say,
These were
this is
regional
just
submittals
another,
that were submitted by the group, the regional management group, coordinating committee.
The west side.
that was the
Right.
Prop 84
And
funding.
they
Right,
did-
319
the group
funding.
did it.
Yes.
I would just like to say, that particular statement is just one of many examples of something I think is far more difficult to convey. That this group is not engaged in collaborative efforts to help do these processes. In every case, cyanobacteria, grant applications, stormwater management, cyanobacteria, CLAC has the willingness and the mission to assist in getting these things put in place, and we are not engaged by
How
the
would you see
agencies
it?
that are involved.
How would you see us making again, because we've said this in the past, how would you see us putting the verbiage in there to get CLAC engaged?
There is a legal requirement for public
Betsy,
involvement and participation.
I understand that. I'm
not
asking
for us to
for
work on grant
something
programs.
specific to CLAC. What do we say to the supervisors that makes that point very clear, and that we feel that our contributions to the supervisors could be greatly enhanced if the supervisors did X for future
Comply with the law,
involvement?
that would be good. Just comply with that law.
Betsy,
I'm sorry, that's what I'm saying.
there is no requirement that the county has to use CLAC in order to comply with any laws to submit grant applications.
No. I'm trying to get it to a higher level. There is a law that says that the agency that implements the NPDES permit must engage public education and outreach and public involvement and participation. In January of 2011, this committee agreed to be the extension of that legal activity to do public involvement in making these programs work. That's what we are here for. Provide that involvement. We are not allowed to be involved.
That's not true. You all were involved in the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan project development. That's where the basis of the grant applications
And
were
the property
submitted came from.
Right.
You selected those projects. That's what went forward. They're still there. We're still going to pursue them. The fact that the state doesn't decide to fund projects
Committee was.
is something we have no control of.
The committee was not
The committee
involved.
really wasn't involved, Katie. That's
Various members were.
two.
Two.
I'm sorry, but I was involved too.
You were at the first meeting.
You know what, I had the tribes had meetings with these
I'm not
folks.
saying that there was a reason why you couldn't be there.
No,
I'm just
no,
saying.
no. We had our own meetings going on too.
But we never heard about those, did we?
I think
That's
that's
not
a
my
fair
problem.
sentence she just
Well,
wrote in the
that's-
middle of that
That's not
paragraph.
Okay.
CLAC members believe that grant applications would be enhanced by our experience and involvement.
Okay, fair enough.
If in fact they are doing something,
That's the crux of it.
if in fact they are doing something that is unlawful, then I think we need to state rhyme and verse as to why that is so. So it's very, very clear. It's all well and good for us to sit here and say they're not abiding by the law. So let's
Which is
put
not the
rhyme and
case.
verse in. I mean, Mike wants to be very, very clear that the supervisors know that they're not doing right by us. So if they're not doing right by us and they're breaking the law or not adhering to the law, then we need to put it in there. So what is the law that they're breaking?
Okay, it's the Water Quality Order 2013-001-DWQ, which calls for engaging the public in the implementation of the
Clack by
program.
name? Clack by
Not
name?
clack by name.
Then they're not breaking the
But
law
clack by name agreed to perform that service in January of 2012.
But it's a matter of, it's a subjective thing, Betsy, that we are not doing anything about it. It's you're.
No, not that we're not doing it.
No, it's a
But that
subjective-
we're not getting the responsiveness of the agencies that should be using us to help accomplish it. Not that we're not doing
Accomplish-
anything, to implement the programs. All the time we keep saying, they're not engaging us, they're not listening to us, they're not taking our advice, we're not able to get through, we're not able to get something done, we can't get a schedule. We're not getting cooperation to help implement that.
Okay, Mike?
That's just what I think.
Directed to the chair, how many times have you been contacted requesting assistance from CLAC by either the Department of Water Resources, the administration?
This year?
Mhm.
I would say only with regard to the lake sales tax measure.
Okay, except you were appointed to that committee. That didn't come through this committee.
That's correct?
Okay. So in other words, the answer is zero.
No, the answer's not.
That
zero.
wasn't a contact to ask CLAC to participate, it was a contact to ask you to participate.
Usually chairs are the ones who are representing on committees.
I haven't seen anything that says that makes it okay, usually.
I'm sorry that you didn't like my participation in it, Betsy, and my...
Actually, I thought the whole thing resulted in a pretty interesting and productive
In any
outcome.
case...
I do. But it doesn't have anything to do with CLAC.
I think my point was
CLAC didn't
Your
get
point
that
that.
is
the county
Yeah.
is not reaching out to
Right.
CLAC
Right.
to involve itself in doing things to improve the lake. So,
Well, let's get that last component in, what
That
we've
would
got.
be helpful.
We can certainly put it at the beginning, middle, or end, but I think we all agree that there's been a lack of cooperation from Water Resources to provide us timely information and allow us to provide the input that we were supposed to be providing on various things, including an integrated water plant management plan and the overall monitoring plans. We've asked for involvement in efficacy programs for various pilot projects that the county has undertaken and, have been basically left.
okay, so if that's the
That needs to be
Put
case,
aside for all of those things.
why aren't we asking the Board of Supervisors to direct staff to correct that?
Sure.
Why can't we use
Hallelujah.
that language?
Let's do it. I mean, I think in the past we've said we don't want to say direct staff, we recommend, and you might have even been one of those proponents, Mike, but if we can say direct staff, I don't know, Tom and Jerry, as council members, would you expect to see language like that, that an advisory committee would say, we're asking you to direct staff?
I think so. We're an advisory committee. We're asking them to.
In the city of Lakeport, the Parks and Rec Committee is extremely effective at recommending things that staff needs to do. And it really helps and then it gets done. So it's very productive.
All right. Taking language recommendations.
CLAC's role is mandated in the Clear Lake Integrated Aquatic Plant Management Plan. It is mandated in the agreement to participate in the Clean Water Program, to implement the NPDES stormwater permit.
Through what?
Those are two things.
Through,
Through its agreement in January of 2012,
okay. All right.
in the minutes, to be the extension of the, I mean, we have been assigned those two roles in conjunction with implementing the NPDES permits, the two permits that are associated with water resources programs.
When you say it was included in the minutes, I'm sorry, what minutes?
January of 2012, those minutes.
I don't know if we took a vote on it, but it was.
Well, that's
I don't think we took a
us
vote on
saying
it.
that we wanted to be involved.
Actually, it was the group agreeing to take on the role recommended in the permit language that was being
Right.
proposed. At the time when the permit was approved in February, a number of the rural counties had argued that they did not want to be told that they had to form a citizens advisory group, so the language was left at recommend use of an existing or forming a citizens advisory group. I then came to this committee and said, would this committee agree to be that, take on that responsibility, and the committee agreed to do it. So it wasn't a permit, it's not a permit requirement.
And we did in fact convey that to the supervisors with our.
I don't think it's ever been conveyed to the supervisors, because I don't think we've ever talked about how this committee is involved in implementing the legal regulatory tools. Anyway.
This is sloppy, but something like this.
Clear Lake Integrated Aquatic Plant Management Plan, yeah. Actually, it wasn't designated, CLAC made the commitment to perform that role.
Yeah, we decided
We
on our
made the
own that
commitment
we
to-
should.
But perhaps the
Right.
county is using somebody else?
No, county's not. I am the chair of that group.
Well, you certainly have a large mailing list and.
100 people.
Yeah, and you do outreach at various events and
That's
table
correct.
things.
And the first thing I did was come to this committee and say, would this committee agree to be the citizens
I know
advisory
you
group?
repeated that multiple times in the
Well,
last 2 minutes.
that's
but-
all I'm saying.
But you can say that the efforts that you've been making also comply with that requirement. The citizens' involvement at the tabling, at the different events you go to? No?
I do, that's reported in the annual report.
Perfect,
That's-
okay, so
that
there
is
is
reported
some
in the annual report.
compliance with that.
Not by CLAC.
Oh, I understand.
I'm trying to
Understand.
get CLAC
No, I
connected to
know
that.
you have a goal, but, and I
Okay.
know we've committed to it, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Well,
But there is a compliance with that component as well, because of your efforts.
But
The
not by
outside groups.
CLAC.
I understand, but there's no law breaking
Now,
here.
CLAC should,
Can
no,
you-
I'm not saying it's breaking the law, just
Okay.
CLAC needs to step up and do that job. That's all.
Can we go up and correct something in
Yes.
the paragraph, please? Majority of the members of the Clear Lake Advisory Committee voted down the concept of the lake sales tax to fund water programs as it was presented in September.
Yes,
Right.
right.
That's true, because the language has changed
The
substantially.
language has been changed,
Profoundly.
actually, the whole thing has been changed.
And in fact, I'd like to say that I, for one, have tried very hard to help them craft this in a way that would be more productive. I haven't tried to stop that.
And what if we had a new vote?
We need to move on.
We can't,
We
we
can't.
can't have a new vote, it's not on our agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
Okay, what else?
Yes,
Sir, all the way at the
Yes.
bottom of the next paragraph, the last thing. Can we, no, that, not that one.
I'm just
Oh,
working
okay.
them, okay, I'm sorry.
Go down to the next one there, Clack's role. Can't we just say in that last little sentence, Clack committed to assume that role?
Okay. That's good. Shall we put the date in January 2011?
I was going to say, we should put the date.
January 2012.
2012.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the board does understand that.
No, I don't think they do.
Because frankly, okay, we'll move the agenda, sorry.
Do we want to make any other statements about I mean, there's actually nothing in here about the board not accepting past recommendations.
I'll put it in a minority report.
Huh?
I'll put it in a minority report.
I would like to see that
You're
we
preparing a minority
actually,
report?
Well, it's not in this report.
Well, we can certainly, I don't think it's a minority opinion. I think it can be put in here.
Chair, excuse me, I would like to supply the dates that I spoke of previously
Okay.
and have them as part of this report, where
Oh.
we made the recommendations with deadlines and I'll certainly review those when I pull them up.
So what if we have so the placeholder, I'll put a placeholder in here about those, that past recommendations.
Have included.
Sorry, I haven't had coffee today, haven't it? In 2012 and 2013, do we want to give a
Sure.
time?
I think that's a good idea.
That was good. It would have been January, it was either December of 2011 or
Yes.
January of
It was
2012.
December of 2011.
I think it does.
And there was some in
Past recommendations.
2012. Mark has a copy of the 2012 recommendations.
Yeah,
We could
good.
go through that, yeah. Pull out the ones that have, to point out that these recommendations have not been.
I think that's a good idea.
Responded
About
to.
these
Mhm.
two.
No, I brought them,
Sarah.
yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
pass them around. I brought it to, as a potential format.
That's a good idea. You could say have included,
I'm
and
trying
then
to
just past Clack's past
Past PUC
recommendations.
recommendations, which have not been addressed. Include, and then we put the list
Sure.
with the dates, and then bulleted items, or, because they were all potentially, but does anyone have a problem with them being bulleted items, or
I
should I
have no
put
problem
full?
with that.
I
As long as
think
you
they should be
include a
bold.
year date or something
You
like
can.
that, whatever it is, but, no, and in fact, I think this is probably the best report I've seen out of this group so far.
We've had to set aside a lot of time
It's a
for
lot
it, but
of,
it's good.
it's hard work, but we
And
need to be.
I like this, I'm very glad I thought of the LCD projector last night, because I think it
Yeah.
really helps.
Yeah, it does.
So anytime anybody needs that, yeah, or someone next year will be. So, Mike, as you've mentioned and others have mentioned, the statements about underutilizing clack. There's an opportunity to put that in here.
Well, the issue is that the Board of Supervisors has never, to my knowledge, directed staff to work with clack. They've never sat there and said, we want you to contact clack, either through the chair or go to the meetings. We want you to participate with clack in getting these things done.
But isn't that why Gary's here?
Yes,
Well,
Partially, yeah.
and the supervisors like.
okay, let me ask a question. And this is not to you, Gary. Does anybody recall Gary coming and asking for clack's assistance on any project
Yes.
in the last year? What was it?
Yes. It had to do with the projects that went forth in the grant. He was very adamant about asking for clack's involvement in that. Very, very clear.
In what?
In what project?
Integrated regional water management plan.
He was very clear. You
Really?
can close your mouth now, Betsy.
No, I seriously don't have
I don't have
any
any recollection of that.
concept of what you're
I
talking
think you
about.
need to go back and look at your minutes.
I most certainly will.
Because he was very clear about requesting that, and
I
hopefully
most
they...
certainly will, because if he had asked, I would have answered.
Trust me, I'm not that old that my memory's that bad. He asked very specifically.
Okay.
And he said that they were asking a lot of different groups, and he said it at a CLAC meeting, and he requested that if CLAC had any projects to add to the list, to any information to add to the projects that were on the list, it was there.
I will certainly go back and look at my records.
What about the Quagga forms, the new Quagga vote, the screening forms? I think those were brought in for,
Yes.
I mean, it's minor, it's not at the level, I agree, we should have been brought in for the Clear Lake Integrated Quagga Plant Management Plan and other things, but before listing things, I think, the forms, they asked us for input on the forms. But we don't come together to do some minor stuff. We come together.
It's $1,000 to throw a McDonald's wrapper out your window in this town.
I know.
And it's $100.
That's why I pushed for it
It's
to be a
$100 to put
misdemeanor.
a contaminated boat in the lake the first time.
That is why I pushed for it to be a misdemeanor from the get-go when I was on the Quagga Missile Task Force.
So
It's an
okay.
environmental crime.
Let's get it done. We have other stuff to address this morning.
So are we pretty much done here,
Yeah,
except for adding the
yeah, that's fine.
supervisor's
That's
recommendations?
fine.
Okay. I mean, the past recommendations. Okay. Can everybody live with it?
Yes.
Yes.
Jerry, is it possible can you print that out? Can you put it on a thumb drive and print it out, Sarah?
I have a thumb drive here, yeah.
So we could get, if Jerry can make copies of it.
She can't
She's
go in
not
there.
allowed to go in there.
Oh.
What a key.
Can I go in?
No, you can't go in there either.
There's no staff on Fridays.
I will go straight back to my office and email it out to everybody.
Okay.
I really appreciate everybody's work on this.
Yeah, me too.
I really do.
Okay, so, do I have a consensus that this is our annual review with the addition of the past plaque recommendations from 2012 and 2013, which have not been addressed?
Do you want a motion?
Sure.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
You did
I
something.
know, I want to go.
One.
One abstention.
You want to vote no?
I'm going to abstain,
You're going to abstain?
contingent upon the final language.
I'm good with it.
All right. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item.
period.
Well, we have new business that we need to get to, including elections. We've got 20 minutes left. We also have a bylaws discussion. I would like to move that we limit your water resources report to a 5-minute.
Okay.
Are there any objections to that? Limit to new business?
Give us the really bad news and form.
Yeah, right. Okay. Thank you.
Now there's 6 inches of water.
No water.
Yeah,
No water.
first order of business is there's no water. We're in the worst drought period we've ever experienced in Lake County as far as rainfall. About 1 inch this year to date. The lake level is pretty steady at about 0.6 of a foot Rumsey. We got a little bit of break from a recent, little bit of snow, a little bit of precipitation, but that has just steady decline, so that we're not really declining that much. It's pretty steady at 0.6. Serious business. We'll see how January and February shake out, because it looks like we're not going to get any rain through till after the first of the year. We've already talked about the Measure L, the sales tax funding for water resources, water quality programs. That's going to go, that was approved by Board of Supervisors, are going to go for review at the state level, come back and see what they say. The Quagga Mussel program, a little bit of status on that. We're having quite an issue with the stickers that the state is issuing in response to their fee that they've added onto the boat registration.
What are those guys doing?
The various state agencies are dueling as far as who's got responsibility. There's big errors in the submittal and in the response from the state for providing stickers. We registered 9 boats with our department, and we only received 5 stickers. So people are getting their registration back, but they don't get their sticker back. We've heard these reports again and again. The general public thinks that they can launch with a state sticker. That's a big problem, and the state has supported that with their news releases. We believe that error is being corrected internally, but they're still going around and around with it. There's currently no law that forces you to have a sticker, no state law. So that's another issue. There's also an exempt box on the forms that people are supposed to check if they only go into salt water. And our understanding is that boat owners, boat people out at the various that we've talked to are sort of saying, well, I don't want to get a sticker, so I'm just going to check the exempt box.
They're lying.
That's another problem.
Sure.
Lots of issues. Since the boating and waterways and fish and wildlife have been combined, they are dueling out their responsibilities internally. Lots of conflict. This pro's a mess. We're very concerned.
Gary, does the county have stickers?
Yes.
Yet for next year?
Oh yeah, our 2014 stickers are out. They're being distributed. We have president stickers, and we started that.
I already got mine from the state.
Right. Yeah, so you can launch, no problem. Well, that is unfortunately what a whole lot of people
Actually, I
think.
can't launch because the bottom of the launch ramp goes boom like that. So if you put some water in the lake, I'd really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we'll see what we can do about that. We're dancing. We're out dancing.
Oh, man.
Maybe burn some tires.
Quagga traps, we have a program we got funding from from Fish and Wildlife to build quagga traps, to have them all around the lake. We're figuring there's going to be 50 sites, plus or minus. Anybody can have one. We're concerned that there may be some false alarms based on everybody having it. Anybody who asks for one can have one. But what we want to do is we want to have the opportunity, everybody who wants a quagga trap can have the opportunity to put one on their dock. And it will greatly increase our monitoring effort. Another big concern is Lake Mendocino, although the lake water in Mendocino, if any of you have seen it, is down to nothing. But the Corps of Engineers has not taken any responsibility for doing any kind of control in Lake Mendocino for boat launches, inspections for quagga mussels.
What I was impressed with is how clean the lake bottom is there.
Yeah.
It just looks like a big beach. I don't think ours would look like
The Corps has not done anything to help provide a buffer for inspecting. I'll quickly wrap this up. There was discussion at this meeting earlier about the TMDL, stormwater stuff. We met with the State Water Quality Control Board, members of the board themselves, representatives from the Central Valley Water Quality Control Board. Our main issue right now is two things. One is determining what our responsibility really is for monitoring, since we only have a very small percentage of the watershed that we're responsible for, not speaking of the county, and the cities involved with our permit. The second thing is defining what our responsible area is within the county. And that is all up in the air. We gave a very clear presentation of what it would cost for us to do this whole monitoring program, which is up in the $200,000, almost $300,000, kind of a program, which we cannot afford. I believe all the people at the meeting understood the situation. We are waiting for their minutes to come back to us to provide us with their interpretation of what went on at that meeting, so we have some official document that we can say, here's our marching orders going forward in our monitoring program on the watershed. That's very important.
Why don't we suggest diverting the money from the park at the Highlands that got diverted to the park in Kelseyville to pour concrete to the monitoring program, because that's $300,000 right there.
Well, we'll see. Anyhow, that's about it. The Clear Lake Integrated Watershed Management Plan, we've been having focus groups meeting of the specific groups, government, business, citizens, and tribes. I believe they've all met.
I'm in the government section now.
So that's it. End of the report.
I just have one question.
Oh, and by the way, here's, I brought this. This is we're going to put these posties out. This is telling people that they not only have a state sticker, which is this sticker here, but they have to have the county stickers, resident or visitor. We're going to post these all around public information.
So who enforces the state sticker?
No law. There's no law.
I had a guy come in the office the other day, 2 days ago, and as a result, I called and talked to Scott, and I called a friend of mine who is on the boat patrol, and he said that nothing has come down from the state, because the question was, do you have to put this sticker on your boat? And I said, well, common sense says that yes, you do, because it's stationed, but we haven't been told anything. And nobody has anything official. What the report person on the boat patrol said, we may know something in January when California issues its new laws. So
We should be involved in forming those laws.
This has served as a great problem for us.
It's horrible. Well, we don't have a lot of time to go into it, but Mike, you have a comment, Betsy, you have a comment. Betsy, you had a question.
No, I'll skip it.
You say the year is very small. The state, barely see.
Yeah, but it's so similar, really.
I'm going to move we delete items 6 and 7 from the agenda.
Yes, I agree with you. Do I need to take a
What is this?
vote on
I
that?
don't know what they are.
It's
Representative.
class representative reports and the old recurring business plus I integrated.
Are there any objections to that?
Are we deleting or just tabling?
Tabling
Just table.
representative reports. Are you requesting we actually delete that as a recurring business item because that's something that should...
I'm not saying
Not today.
it's for this meeting.
Okay, so
So
we're
let's table
tabling.
them.
Okay, unless, are there any objections to tabling 6 and 7?
No.
No.
Thank you. Moving into...
Motion. Have a second?
It was a consensus.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Moving into new business, elections for 2014 chair, vice chair, and secretary. The floor is open for nominations for chair.
I'm going to nominate Tom.
Tom can't accept.
I'd like to nominate Melissa.
No, Melissa can't accept.
I'll nominate Vince.
No, I am the secretary. Nominate me for secretary, please.
Okay, I'll nominate Betsy as secretary.
How do you nominate Melissa one more time for chair?
I've got a lot of demands on my time with my so-called paying job. And I don't like to take on jobs that I don't think I can do justice. So, I don't want to do a bad job.
So I renominate Sarah to keep the chair. That's second.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations for chair?
Vice chair, we need a vice chair.
Still on chair. Need an all in favor.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, please, Sarah.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Abstain.
Vice chair, nominations? Nominate Melissa.
I'll take that.
And I'll second it.
Any other nominations for chair? For vice chair?
Who made the motion?
I did.
For
No.
for Melissa?
I make the motion.
Sarah and I
Okay,
seconded it.
thank you.
Okay, all in favor of Melissa as vice chair?
Aye.
Opposed?
But your husband calling and say, no, don't accept.
No, it's my staff. It's my staff.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the floor is open for nominations for secretary. I'll nominate Betsy
Is
Gaunt.
there anybody else that feels like doing this thankless goddamn job?
I think we're all thankless.
Can't say that on television.
Oh, excuse me.
There's no next to be had here.
Oops. Point that one out, didn't we? I nominate Betsy Gaunt. Is there a second?
A second.
Any other nominations for secretary? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You can't
Abstentions?
abstain.
I can't vote for myself.
That's right. Yeah, you can.
All right, congratulations, everyone.
Okay.
The CLAC bylaws item.
Mhm.
Mike, you had some excellent recommendations. My suggestion, and I have talked to a couple of people about this, basically, I think I've mentioned it to you, I've asked Anita about it to see her thoughts on on our bylaws and move forward with making changes to our bylaws. I would suggest that we develop a work group that comes back at our January meeting with some recommendations on improvements to our bylaws, so that we're not piecemealing it with, you've got some changes that you'd like to see, someone else might have some changes. We don't even get to certain issues such as how do we add items to the agenda. That's not in our bylaws. And maybe other
My
particular.
question is, how do we enforce our bylaws?
Let's put it, you
That's
know.
my question.
If if they're not being enforced and it's not clear, then we.
Should we put this on the agenda for January?
I
What do you-
have a question. Because I read Mike's memo on this. And I think if we feel that, if any one of us feels that we've been violating our bylaws, then that needs to be distributed to the entire committee, and then be the subject for discussion by the subcommittee. Because you shouldn't go into, my opinion is, you shouldn't go into a discussion of amending bylaws unless there are specific reasons for amending them and specific violations that need to be known by the subcommittee.
I would like to volunteer to write a problem statement to present to the committee at the next meeting. Anyone who has input to that problem statement should send it to me, and I will assemble that for discussion. And then you can decide whether you want to have a subcommittee to form a work group to change the bylaws, or whether the problem is that the bylaws are all right as they are, but we're not enforcing those kinds of issues. I think we have issues we have to address first.
Well, there were some items that Mike wanted to change in the
I
bylaws.
understand.
There is also one item that Anita mentioned, that of how are you putting things on your agenda? You know, not that anyone would want, oh, it's got to be a consensus vote. That's so limiting if everybody has to agree to put something in. But it needs to be a clear-cut way of how things are added, and perhaps even deadlines. But so there are potential multiple changes to
Could be.
to the bylaws. The way that you're recommending it sounds like it's going to be dragged on.
We don't have a complete a list of things. He's got some complaints, I have some complaints, other people may have complaints. We don't know what they are because we have not compiled the list. I think it would be fair to address the list of complaints and concerns, and then decide whether it's a change to the bylaws, or an enforcement of the bylaws, or an enforcement of the Brown Act. What is the actual response that's needed should be based upon a comprehension of the problem. We are not talking about the problem.
That's what I was saying.
So, I have offered to compile a list. If other people want to submit input to that, they want to complain that this is not whatever you want to do. I withdraw this suggestion. It's a secretarial task.
We also have Anita Grant has offered to come to a CLAC meeting to go over Brown Act issues and bylaws. So we can potentially have her come to the January meeting, get that out of the way, so if there are items that are happening that are either a lack of enforcement of our bylaws or Brown Act violations, we start our year off with getting on the right path with that, moving forward, and not creating, frustration for members or a whole
I
myriad
think
of
that's a
issues.
good idea. And then the issues, you've identified yourselves as having issues, and there may be others.
That's right.
So we can bring them all to Anita and get them addressed at the same time.
I'd like to say, in reviewing the bylaws that I just did and the Brown Act as well, I have noticed that we do not have an actual complaint procedure. We don't have one. So that's a complaint procedure, so that when a member is concerned about a violation of something, If it's not considered to be important by the chair, then it doesn't go anywhere because the consensus is that it's not really important. That's not good enough for a member to not be able to provide a complaint, to address a concern. Somehow we need to be able to incorporate that, I think, for the democratic process. I just noticed that, I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, I think we can, I think it's a really good question for
We have
Anita.
bylaws if we don't have a way of
Yeah,
addressing
if that's something that is supposed to be, that advisory committees are supposed to have the ability to do in order to function properly, then it needs to be addressed probably in our bylaws or
I know.
some other. So my recommendation is that, I mean, if I'm just concerned about, a list that then gets debated and all that during a BOS meeting, that I don't know how effective that's going to be. I think it's maybe more, maybe I'll be letting off steam for certain people, or maybe it'll be a lot of misunderstanding. I would much rather just get to business, have Anita, my recommendation is see if Anita can come to our January meeting, spend some time, we can bring some issues up with her right then and there.
I believe that your interpretation of a complaint from a member discredits the credibility of the members. None of the complaints are based upon hurt feeling. These are violations of the rules. And that's at least something that should be addressed as a committee issue of how we do business. That's all I'm suggesting.
So why don't we air that with Anita so that we can hear it from the legal side of things? Because I know that the discussions that I've had with her and forwarding, we all forward each other's emails around, which is probably also maybe a Brown Act violation if I'm sending stuff to you that goes to other members, I don't know. But in any case, if we have Anita come and we can air that business in January, and if we see that we still need to update the bylaws, do it at the next meeting. I think I could put on that January.
All right.
Okay. So, Mike?
I object. I asked for this put on the agenda. I asked for this item to be put on the agenda specifically because there's a requirement in our bylaws that the committee review the bylaws at least annually. We haven't done that. I have been accused, committee, multiple times for being the individual that attempts to get a by with one's rules of order, which are the operative rules we're supposed to operate under, and nobody's going to read them, let alone hear them. There's an objection about how difficult it is to follow specifically. So I offered Rosenberg's. The reason I offered Rosenberg's is because they're being adopted across the state as a much simplified methodology. And essentially, you as the chair have overruled my request for the agenda item. We are now beyond our time limit for the meeting.
How did I overrule it? I didn't overrule it. It was a matter of timing. I also discussed your agenda item with Anita prior to our meeting and said, Anita, this is the request of a CLAC member. I'm concerned about the timing of it in terms of being able to finish our quarterly reports. I'm going to put on our agenda the quarterly reports prior to new business, and I'm going to make a recommendation that we form a work group to discuss this to be efficient in our time. And she said, I think that's an excellent suggestion. So I did pass it by legal counsel. I'm not overriding it, Mike. It's a time thing, and I think we'll be better using our time.
Well, except you used the time rather than addressing the issue or allowing me to address the issue. So that's right. We're done.
We can't.
No, county advisory policies have gotten it. County advisory committees have gotten the documentation from Anita. Use Robert's Rules of Order to actually change it would require the board of supervisors to accept that change.
Any change in our rules would require the board to approve it anyway.
Yeah, that was her.
So are we adding to the January agenda the discussion of the...
Come on, let's go.
Merry Christmas.
We're done.
We're inviting Anita Grant in January.
Yes. Meeting adjourned.
Do we need to vote on that I'm moving the adding to the agenda, no, we just added it to the agenda.
just
Okay. So adjourn at what time?
If it requires the board of supervisors to approve it, so why do we need to talk about it ourselves? Is it so
No,
that we
we're
can
talking
say we
about
want
it.
them to change it?
Mike had recommended that we adopt that instead, and for the interest of time, I'm saying I had recommended that a work group be formed to kind of work all that out and look at the details, come back to us with recommendations, so we're not piecemealing it.
I understand that part of it. Well, I thought what you also said was that the county board of supervisors has to approve any changes that we do as far as where we move from one set of orders.
Yeah, according to Anita.
So that any work group would then be about asking the board to let us change.
Well, no,
No?
no,
I misunderstood.
what Anita's, because I asked the question, when I saw Mike's memo, I asked the question of Anita, not knowing what communication Sarah was having, if it was possible to move from Roberts to Rosenberg. And the answer is no, because the county adheres to Roberts. And and all advisory committees need to adhere to Roberts.
So
If
it's not,
the county should move from, yeah, we can't have Rosenberg.
so if we can't change it from one set to another, then there's no point in having a special subcommittee.
No, he also was a chair of that
Merry
committee.
That's the part we're talking about addressing.
Yeah, and, how do we add things to the agenda, how do we, get it brought up, how do we